Hello! Welcome to the Study With Me series of Law School Buddy. I have prepared audiobook materials following the syllabus of the Philippine Bar Exams dedicated to our law school students. I hope that this audiobook can help with your study and review. Let's begin. Today's episode will cover Concepts and Definitions in Political Law. Part 1: The Constitution. Number 1. What is political law? Political law deals with organization and operations of governmental organs and defines the relations of the state with the inhabitants of its territory. People v. Perfecto, 1922. Number 2. What is constitutional law? Constitutional law is the law embodied in the Constitution and the legal principles growing out of the interpretation and application of its provisions by the courts in specific cases. Number 3. Define Constitution. The Constitution is a document which serves as the fundamental law of the state, that written instrument enacted by the direct action of the people, by which the fundamental powers of the government are established, limited and defined. Malcolm. Philippine Constitution Law. Number 4. What are the classification of constitutions? 1. Written versus unwritten. 2. Enacted or conventional versus evolved or cumulative. 3. Rigid versus flexible. The Philippine Constitution is written, enacted and rigid. Number 5. What is the date of effectivity of the 1987 Constitution? February 2, 1987, the date of the plebiscite, and not on the date its ratification was proclaimed. De Leon versus Esquerra, 1987. Number 6. What are the basic principles of constitutional interpretation? 1. Verbal legis, or give words their ordinary meaning. 2. Ratio legis esse anima, or intent of the framers. 3. Ut magis vale quam perit, or interpret as a whole. Number 7. What are the parts of the Constitution? 1. Constitution of Government. 2. Constitution of Sovereignty. 3. Constitution of Liberty. Number 8. Define amendment. Amendment is an addition or change within the lines of the original Constitution, adds, reduces or deletes without altering the basic principles involved, affects only the specific provision being amended. Lambino versus Comelec, 2006. Number 9. Define revision. Revision is a change that alters a basic principle in the Constitution, alters the substantial entirety of the Constitution. The 1987 Constitution allows people's initiative only for the purpose of amending, not revising, the Constitution. Number 10. Distinguish the two-part test. To determine whether amendment or revision. 1. Quantitative test examines only number of provisions affected, not the degree of the change. 2. Qualitative test inquires into the qualitative effects of the proposed change in the Constitution. Example is whether the change will accomplish such far-reaching changes in the nature of our basic governmental plan as to amount to a revision. Number 11. What are the steps in the amendatory process? Step 1. Proposal, the adoption of the suggested change in the Constitution. A. Congress, as a constituent assembly, a vote of 3/4 of all its members. B. Constitutional Convention, called into existence by 2/3 of all members of Congress or the electorate, in a referendum called for by a majority of all members of Congress. C. People, through a people's initiative, petition of at least 12% of the total number of registered voters. Every legislative district must be represented by at least 3% of the registered voters therein. Limitation on initiative. No amendment in this manner shall be authorized within 5 years following the ratification of the 1987 Constitution, nor more often than once every 5 years thereafter. Step 2. Ratification. The proposed amendment shall be submitted to the people, and shall be deemed ratified by the majority of the votes cast in a plebiscite, held not earlier than 60 days nor later than 90 days. A. After approval of the proposal by Congress or Constitutional Convention. B. After certification by the Comelec of sufficiency of petition of the people. Number 12. What is the doctrine of proper submission? A plebiscite may be held on the same day as a regular election. Gonzalez versus Kamalek, 1967. The entire Constitution must be submitted for ratification at one plebiscite only. The people must have a proper frame of reference. Tolentino versus Kamalek, 1971. No piecemeal submission or submission of age amendment ahead of other proposed amendments. Number 13. What is judicial review of amendments? The validity of the process of amendment is not a political question, because the court must review if constitutional processes were followed. The issue is a manner, not wisdom. Number 14. What are the steps in the revision process? Same as amendments in all respects, except that it cannot be proposed via people's initiative. Number 15. What are self-executing provisions? Provisions which are complete in themselves and do not need enabling legislation for their operation. Judicially enforceable per se. Manila Prince Hotel vs. GSIS, 1997. General presumption. All provisions of the Constitution are self-executing. Exception. Statements of general principles, such as those in Article 2, are usually not self-executing. Number 16. What are non-self-executing provisions? Provisions which merely lay down a general principle. Note: a provision may be self-executing in one part and non-self-executing in another. Manila Prince, Supra. And that is the end. If this audiobook has helped you, please comment down below and like and share our video to someone who might need it. Thank you so much for making us your law school buddy.